Good evening, all. Let's begin with a silent prayer, please. Thank you. To do the welcome address and to introduce the guest, I invite our CEO Forum Chairman, Mr. Harikumar.
Thank you, President. Good evening, everybody. I'm happy to welcome you all to the talk session by Mr. Suhail Seth. It's on a unique topic, reinventing the Indian CEO. Everything about business, the way the business is carried out, the nature of business, the business environment, everything is changing, as you all know. And it is not only the CEO who is and who has to get reinvented, the business itself is getting reinvented. And to adjust to the changing business requirements, where even disruption is a way of reinventing business, the CEO also has to be reinvented. And we also know that the Indian-born CEOs are very much in demand. They are heading many Fortune 500 companies, and even now he is also going to become the IMF chairman. And it all shows the ability of the Indian CEOs to adapt, the ability to meet the challenges, and the Indian CEOs are getting noticed and recognized. So it's quite apt that KMA sought the topic, decided on the topic, the reinventing the Indian CEO. Now coming to Mr. Suhail Seth, I don't think he needs an introduction to this august audience. He is the managing partner of Conselage India, which is a branding and marketing consultancy. And his client list, if you look at it, includes the who's who of Indian corporate world, and is also known as the crisis man of the Indian ad world, because it is to whom when the corporate honchos go to during the time of crisis. With varied interest in topics ranging from films to fashion, to finance, women's rights, politics, spirituality, he has advised or is advising people like Ratan Tata, Mukesh Ambani, Pawan Munjal, Sanjeev Goenka, so on and so forth. He has a way with words, is charming, as you all are going to, is articulate, as you will all know in the next 10-15 minutes. We all have seen him in various TV debates. He's knowledgeable, not afraid to speak his mind. And apart from above, he is also a stage and film actor who has acted in more than 160 plays and maybe around 8 films. A very much sought after brand advisor, not only to MNCs but even to Indian companies on entry strategies, market entry strategies, or even companies which are facing headwinds. He is there always to advise them, either from a brand perspective or from a corporate issue or on a corporate issue. Apart from all this, he also advises political campaigns, and he also has advised many prime minister campaigns also. So before we present Mr. Suhail Seth, the brand himself, I would request the President of KMA, Ms. Nirmala Lilly, to give her presidential address. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harikumar sir. Chief guest of the day, Mr. Suhail Seth, CEO Forum Chairman, Mr. K. Harikumar, our Honorary Secretary, Mr. Aljaz Khalid, Managing Committee members, past President, invited guests, all CEOs and MDs, CMDs, thank you so much for coming in. Welcome and a warm good evening to one and all. Coming to KMA, there are a lot of nostalgic memories passing on my mind because this was my first job. I joined Taj Malabar way back in 1989, and 18 years of Taj. So therefore, it's always a pleasure for me to come to Taj Malabar. And Kerala Management Association, as you all know, spearheading management movement in Kerala. We've been organizing a lot of seminars, evening lectures, panel discussions. We had our annual convention this year at the Grand Hyatt Hotel, and Women Forum, Women Conclave, and then we have got this CEO Conclave as well. I must congratulate and appreciate our chairman, Mr. K. Harikumar sir. He's a CMD and of TCC and Malabar Siemens for organizing brilliant speakers for lectures as well as this wonderful conclave, which is going to be memorable for all of us for sure. In December, I went to Goa to attend an IMA, All India Management Association council meeting. After the council meeting, we had this chief guest as a speaker, and we listened to a scintillating speech. And it was awesome. He mesmerized all of us. A ceaseless flow of words, ideas, thoughts, strategies, and whatnot. We all glued to him. And after that, I was sincerely prayed and wished that if we could get him one day to address our people. After the speech, I went to him and had requested, sir, so-and-so, and we would love to have you in Kochi. And he readily accepted and agreed to it. And thank you so very much, sir. It was indeed great having you, and it's our honor and privilege to have you with us. Thank you very much for accepting my request. Mr. Seth name is synonyms with success and innovation. As a renowned marketing and communication expert, he has established himself as a thought leader, a trusted advisor, and a true trailblazer in the industry. With his unparalleled expertise, Mr. Seth has transformed the way we think about marketing and branding and has been instrumental in shaping the strategies of numerous companies and organizations. As we face new challenges and opportunities in today's rapidly changing world, we need visionaries like him who can inspire us to think differently, challenge the status quo, and strive the greatness. His depth of knowledge, experience, and insights are invaluable assets that can help us navigate the complexities of today's world and shape a better future for a generation to come. Our topic of the day, Reinventing the Indian CEO. As the world rapidly evolves, so does the role of CEOs in leading organizations towards success. India, a nation known for its rich heritage and entrepreneurial spirit, has produced exceptional CEOs who have made their mark globally. However, to thrive in ever-changing business landscape, it is imperative for Indian CEOs to reinvent themselves and adapt a new reality. To dwell upon the topic, we have our pride of India, Mr. Suhail Seth, Managing Partner, Conselage India, author, actor, mentor, and keynote speaker. Sir, we welcome you, and all are eagerly waiting to hear you. Eyes and ears are for you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And yes, Nirmala met me in Goa in December. I was addressing an IMA council meeting. The beauty is I could have been addressing them in 1947 or in 2047, the same faces will remain. CII, FICCI, ASSOCHAM, only the presidents rotate year by year, but the faces who run the organization behind like puppeteers remain. I hope it's not the same with Kerala. But nowadays, I've given up. When you walk through the door and you see one chap standing, lurking in the corner, you know you've come to a FICCI event or an ASSOCHAM event or a CI event. But the reason why I'm here is not because of KMA, I'll be honest. Reason why I'm here is I'm an adopted Malayali. My wife is Malayali, and I come here every year for Vishu. So it's not as if Kerala Management Association either paid my airfare or hotel bill, and that too have invited me for high tea in 42 degrees Celsius by the bay, where all you will see is garbage and no dolphins. But I have no issues with that. To come to the point, I think the most important word in this line is Indian. It doesn't say reinventing the CEO, it says reinventing the Indian CEO. The reason being, Murphy was actually an Indian. You know, we keep saying Murphy's Law, Murphy's Law. Murphy was an Indian. Indians have a problem for every solution. Indians will never answer a question. You ask an Indian, are you going to Coimbatore tomorrow? His answer will be, I've just come back from Bombay. They will never answer the question. The other thing is, you ask an Indian, like today, with all due apologies, every Indian is Bernard Shaw. The preface is longer than the play. Now, sometimes, and in the good old days when Shekhar Gupta, who was then the editor of Indian Express, which is another unique story, I mean, you have people editing English newspapers whose knowledge of the language is so feeble that you worry about their readers, but then you realize that the readers are no more intelligent than the editors. So whenever he was on a panel discussion as moderator, he would speak more than all the panelists combined multiplied by 6. So then we started inventing a trick. We said the best way to shut him up is to say, but Shekhar, as you would agree. And then he'd keep quiet. So what are the hurdles that Indian CEOs on a serious note face? Number one, it is a minefield to navigate this country. And for an Indian to succeed as a chief executive officer in this country is remarkable. You have now shareholder activism, you have the tyranny of social media, you have the complete breakdown in corruption, I mean, not breakdown in, but the breakdown of the system, as it were. Everyone says, oh, Modi has gotten rid of corruption. Actually, at lower levels, corruption has increased manifold times because the cost of getting caught is so high. Earlier, everyone was making money. So if you made 20,000 rupees, you're also making. Today, the people at the top are not making. Now the guys below are saying, if we have to really make it big, because if we make it small and go to jail for 75,000 rupees graft, not worth it. So these are the minefields you have to navigate. Plus, you've got SEBI. I mean, SEBI is the only institution, to my mind, which exists for SEBI. But the shareholders don't seem to matter. Subrata Roy sent them 37 truckloads of documents. He's sitting in Lucknow in his palatial home, and SEBI is still trying to go through those documents. Then we have, institutions. We have great banks, which give money to people who produce fake diamonds. And only when those guys have scooted, then they realize. We have the Enforcement Directorate, the Central Bureau of Investigation. I think there are more raids in India than functioning traffic lights. But, it all continues. They never catch anyone, or if they catch someone, it's just before the chap joins the BJP. The moment he joins the BJP, he's clean. So we also have political parties now becoming laundromats. Now, can you imagine an Indian CEO trying to navigate this system? Because he has to worry about business, then he has to worry about the system, then he has to worry about which system. You have to be nice to Pinyari here and very nice to Modi there. So when you're in Trivandrum, you've got to praise the communists. When you're in Delhi, you've got to praise the BJP. If you happen to overfly Bengal, you have to praise Mamata Banerjee. I mean, how on earth do you do business here? So the advice I've given people is never get involved with politics in any which way. The arm's length between politics and chief executives has to be maintained like a very, very strong Chinese wall. And the mistake that CEOs make is thinking that if I have political patronage and political sheltering, my businesses will do well. They never do. Lalit Modi had remarkable political patronage, as did Nirav Modi, as did Vijay Mallya. Did it save them? No. Politicians are only for themselves, they're for no one else. So that's the first reality of doing business in India. And I think the Indian CEO has to reinvent him or herself from being part of the system to actually being divorced from the system. The problem is the system wants to co opt everyone and anyone it can. Today is not the time when you can be in bed with any political affiliation of any kind because it's so fast moving, it is so dangerous. And what is happening, which a lot of people are not understanding, if you're in bed with a particular political dispensation, you also take on their friends as much as you take on their enemies. If you see what's happening to Adani today, the attack is not on Adani, the attack is on Modi. If Adani weren't Modi's friend, he would have gotten away with this. The tragedy is people think because he's Modi's friend, he's getting away. When you lose 60% of market value, you don't seem to get away. But because you're seen so closely aligned with the political dispensation at the center, you're fair game for every opposition party. So people don't realize that strategically, that's the problem. I can give you an example closer home. 2016, October 24, Cyrus Mistry was removed by the board of Tata Sons. There was no question that Mr. Tata is widely loved and hugely respected by people across the political firmament. Did he make any call? No. Did he ask people for help? No. Did we ask anyone for help? The question doesn't arise. On October 25, 2016, it was a Tuesday, Cyrus Mistry sent out a 9-page email, which was obviously prepared before, so he knew what was happening. And that 9-page email it was a decrepit, derogatory, defamatory email. We didn't respond. Why did we not respond? Because it was not worth engaging with people. Please remember, and I'm not saying this in the context of Cyrus, never get into a fight with a pig. You get dirty and the pig loves it. Sometimes it's very important to disengage from any kind of this nonsense. So what did we do? We took the battle to two people, shareholders and the courts. And we won there. Which brings me to my second point. The chief executive officer is only responsible to two stakeholders, to his shareholders and to his consumers. The biggest mistake that Indian chief executives used to make earlier was they would manage the board rather than manage the business. They would make sure that the board was pliant, that the board was compliant, that the board ensured their, through NRC, their salary increases. No. Those days are over because competition is so severe. And therefore, brings me to the third point. The Indian CEO today has been forced to recalibrate, reimagine, and rejuvenate. Please remember, up until 1991, you and I had to wait for six months to a year for a Chetak scooter or an ambassador car. In the ambassador car, nothing made a noise. I mean, everything made a noise except the horn. But we still waited, patiently for the ambassador. When liberalization happened in 1991, we discovered the art of competition. And then, if you remember, Rahul Bajaj stupidly and famously talked about the Bombay Club and a level playing field. And I remember at that point in time, I just started working with the patriarch, Brijmohan Lalji Munjal, on Hero. And we discovered that we didn't need to suck up to anyone. We didn't need to go to any political party. We didn't need to be pliant with anyone. We didn't need to give donations in those days. See, Modi has even made donations an art. Now, no one knows who's giving to anyone because electoral bonds are non-transparent. But in those days, political parties were accepting cash by the droves. And there was a clear policy that, look, Hero will not pay. And Hero will work on technology, Hero will work on the back of consumer behavior, and will work on the back of consumer insights. Therefore, the Indian CEO, and that brings me to the next point, the Indian CEO today doesn't have to reinvent himself. He is forced to reinvent himself. Because the market movement is so rapid. Today, we can't say we are in India. We are part of a global complex system. I don't need to order a toothpaste from here if that toothpaste doesn't fit the bill. Through e-commerce portals, through platforms such as Amazon or Agio or whatever it is, I can order it from anywhere. And the government of the day, and this is where I have to salute Modi. The government of the day, for all the noise that Rahul Gandhi and his ilk make about, Ambani, Adani, you don't create a successful brand only because you're politically connected. If that were the case, there would be many different brands playing today in the market rather than the brands that do. I remember when we were launching or thinking about launching Jio, which was between 2012 and 2015. It was launched finally in 2015 because there was a non-compete clause that Mukesh had with Anil. It was very important to understand consumer behavior. India was and remains the capital of the world in missed calls. People give missed calls for everything. You want a masala dosa, 2 missed calls. You want a rava masala, 3 missed calls. You want to ignore your wife, 1 missed call. I mean, what the hell is going on? So, in a country which never cared about voice, if you said voice is free, everyone loved it. But also remember the other consumer insight. India is the capital of freedom fighters. They fight for anything that's free. All you need to do is say, voice free. People say, that's the one we need to go to. Having said that, the Indian CEO today is also a victim of grave and pernicious anonymous attacks. These attacks are taking place on social media. These attacks are taking place through media, print or television. I've always said that of late, Indian newspapers resemble a nursery. There's a plant on every page. You don't need glasses to read a newspaper today. You need a hosepipe because everyone is planting articles on every page of that newspaper. So how do companies then adapt? How do companies realize that these changes need to be done? I will now give you some lessons that I've learned. Just give me some water here. I will give you, no, but he'll give it. Yeah, come. I will tell you about lessons that I've learned dealing with the world's finest CEOs. And these are simple life lessons. These are not complex, Dale Carnegie kind of stuff. Number one, the finest CEOs read till they die. They read enormously. I can tell you today, a Mukesh Ambani or Mr. Tata, Chandra by far, I would say that in N. Chandrasekharan, Tata Sons could have never had a better human being and a better professional to manage Tata Sons. It's not about their knowledge. It is about their thirst for knowledge. It is not about what they know. They are fearful about what they don't. It is not about who they listen to. It's about how they listen and how they implement. These are important ingredients. See, we all hear because if you have ears that can hear, you will hear. But that's a non-cognitive function. How do you actually make the attempt to listen and then put into action some of the things that need to be done? The other thing with CEOs, great CEOs is, and look, there are good CEOs and there are great CEOs. I'm talking about how do you move from good to great. The other very important ingredient is that you're only as strong as your weakest link. David Ogilvy, the famous advertising person, many years ago said, if you want to become a company of giants, hire people better than you. If you hire people inferior to you because of your insecurity, you'll become a company of dwarfs. In the good old days, we were very scared about hiring people better than us. Oh yeah, he'll take away my job. We never recognized the fact that if you hired someone like that, your company would improve. Your company's balance sheet would improve. Your company's performance would improve. Leadership is not about leading. Leadership is about following your followers and looking at their aspirations. Somehow we have mistakenly got this notion that leadership is about leading. That's for stupid people. Because the word is leader, I must lead. No. Ultimately, great leadership is about understanding the aspirations, the needs, the dreams, the desires of every single follower of yours. Only then will you be able to lead. If I'm disconnected with my followers, or if I'm disconnected with my consumer, if I'm disconnected with my team, how on earth will I lead? And who will I lead? What will I lead them to? And for how long will I lead? These are questions that need to be asked. The other critical, to my mind, the critical ingredient is to be able to say what you believe. You know, my late father sat me down. So I have a rule. To this day, I'm going to be 60 in May. To this day, I read one book a day. One book a day. But that's because I'm insane. And, you know, I've been doing it for years. I'm not expecting any of you guys to read one book a day. But my late father told me three things. Number one, never lie. Because if you lie, you have to remember what you said. Number two, never take a loan. EMI, nothing. Because, you know, no one should be able to say, oh, this guy, you know, died while drunk driving, but he still owes me so much of money. So remember, they won't commiserate your death, but they'll remember the money that you owed them. The third is never say something behind someone's back that should be afraid to say on their face. For too long, we were a politically correct society, and we still are. I mean, I know people, when they see ministers and prime minister and cabinet minister, so what a great job. You know, so I will not name the person. So there's this telecom czar. We were all at someone's house for dinner, and he meets Ravi Shankar Prasad. And he says, oh, you're one of the finest telecom ministers India's ever produced. So I was on my sixth drink, and I told Ravi, I said, by the way, he said the same thing on October 13, 2013 to Kapil Sibal. Acha? They always talk like that. So this guy, when we got up for dinner, he says, how do you remember the date? I said, no, I remember the behavioral pattern. The date only makes it look real. Now, in the good old days, every CI, you know, after the budget, they have that round table. Just before the finance minister arrives, everyone would abuse the finance minister. Terrible budget, blah, blah, blah. So one year, Chidambaram was there. And I think Yogi Deveshwar is the president. People were abusing Chidambaram, which is not unusual. And they abuse. When he walked in, I said, so he says, what are people saying about the budget? I said, everyone here abused you. No, not at all. It's a visionary budget. Now you look at industrialists. After every budget, there are three phrases. Pro-farmer, pro-poor, and visionary. We might as well write the new constitution with these three words. Every budget, if it's a budget for a municipal body or if it's a union budget, we will always use these three things. Pro-farmer, pro-poor, and visionary. So I'm saying it's time for Indian CEOs to become like global CEOs. The Tim Cooks take a stand. A Steve Jobs took a stand. A Larry Ellison takes a stand. Elon Musk takes many stands. Our CEOs just don't seem to take a stand because they're worried about reprisal. Now, the point is, from goodness to greatness, the one thing you needn't worry about is reprisal. And the other thing is you never need to worry about legacy. The biggest mistake in India are two things. Number one, we believe in karma. Oh, next birth. Karma, if it has to bite you, it'll bite you in this birth. So don't wait for the next time. Second is, we are polite to the point of being servile. You know, Narayan Murthy said brilliantly once, he says, every Indian must have the right to disagree without being disagreeable. We have stopped using humor. CEOs don't write letters of commendation to their people. They write letters of condemnation. CEOs don't use humor in their speeches. You read the AGM speeches of most CEOs, you could change the brand name, it will be the same for that sector. Oil will be same, cement will be same, everyone will be same. Last para, we thank the Prime Minister for his untiring zeal and beautiful vision to take this country to its next level, Amrit Kal or this Kal or that Kal. Where is your consumer? Where is your employee? Even the distance that you maintain between these two is remarkably short-sighted. We are not even, you know, the celebration. And let me go back into history. Jamshedji Nasarwanji Tata, when asked, what is your belief? He says, if you plant trees for 100 years, 200 years. He said, if you plant men and women, you plant them for life. We've gone away from that cultural repository because our CEOs have become cookie cutters as well. We don't read enough. There used to be a time when CEOs were involved in music and literature. Today, sadly, this country has become a country of MBAs and engineers. The worst combination you can ever have, with due apologies to whoever's an MBA and an engineer. The worst thing. Actually, India's decline has happened because of the MBA and the engineer. I'll tell you why. Our civilizational legacy was drawn because we were who we were and we are who we are in terms of what we have imbibed. Today, some of these jokers want to remove Maulana Azad's name. They want to. We are the only country which is making dead people fight. Sardar Patel versus Nehru. Both are dead. Every day we want them to fight. But who are they going to fight with? We're not listening to music anymore. We're not appreciating the arts anymore. I mean, can you imagine? Because of some jokers in politics in Kerala, you had to have the closing of the Biennale in Ernakulam. In Ernakulam and Trivandrum. Oh, thank God. Someone told me it was in Trivandrum, so I stand corrected. I mean, I said, why on earth would you close the Kochi Biennale in Trivandrum? But I'm saying, even the Biennale, the Tata Trust is one of the supporters, as is Joe's, as is many people. We need more of that. I was so delighted with what Neeta and Mukesh Ambani have done with the NMACC. It is remarkable. People say, oh, it's a great structure, but so is Lincoln Center. Our CEOs have stopped understanding the civilization. Most, I shouldn't say all, have stopped understanding the civilizational legacy of this country. And we don't realize and recognize that great business comes from a great civilizational inheritance. Because that's when you're able to talk. That's when you're able to put things in context. And the biggest problem in our country today is we are lacking context. Because everything is in the here and now. And my point is, I'm no one to, tell all you people, you all are ultimately, hugely successful, you run large businesses, but sometimes I think it's important for you also to sit back and actually introspect as to what kind of business legacy would you like to leave behind? Not personal legacy. What kind of business legacy would you like people to remember you for or remember your organization for? Would I want to remember CGH because they stood close to the earth no matter what businesses they did? I mean, that's the positioning. Why would I sacrifice my involvement with society, therefore its people, therefore the environment, therefore climate, at the altar of short-term money? And that's the question that everyone needs to ask. And finally, because, they've given me only 30 minutes, and finally, I will just say this and end with this. Let's not go over the top saying, oh, see how many Indians have become CEOs abroad. They've become CEOs abroad because we gave them, they got an opportunity like they don't get here often. The problem is every guy who wins the Nobel Prize outside then gets the Bharat Ratna here. Mother Teresa, Amartya Sen. Before that, we don't recognize. Ghar ki murgi dal barabar for the uninitiated in the south, which means even the hen in your house is like dal. But that's who we are. We don't create institutional excellence models. And I've often been asked overseas, if I'm delivering a lecture in Colombia on the 20th of April in New York, people always ask me, why is India so poor? I said, actually, every country is poor. The difference between India and other countries is we have the impoverishment of opportunities. We deprive people of the basics, of healthcare, of education, of a justified, just, equitable society. That's the difference. And what CEOs should strive for is an equitable, just society. There's a lovely book, and it's a non-economics book, so try and read it if you can. It's called Idea of Justice by Amartya Sen. It's one of the most fascinating books on societal evolution and complexities of human behavior. The CEO of tomorrow must recognize this is going to be a borderless world. Geographies won't matter. Sadly, nationalities may. Origin may, because of all the global jingoism that's going around. But that too won't last. What will last is the thread of civilizational legacy. So the CEO is ultimately a custodian of his or her company's brand or his or her company's business. reimagine your job not as a CEO but as a custodian. And the day you do that, you will be the reinvented CEO. Thank you so much.
Sure that all of you will agree with me what I said is true. And there are a lot of lessons that we have learned today. And may I request all of you that Sir will be definitely take few questions. Yeah. Can you pass the mic? Any questions? Sir? Yes.
From whatever you have spoken, and it's not about the Indian CEO alone, it's about our economy as it is. We are inching ourselves towards becoming the third largest economy in the world, or the fifth largest, as we call ourselves right now. What's your take on that? And because you said that on one side we see a lot of abject poverty, and on the other side you see all our corporates rising, or at least on paper we see them all rising up to the international standards. So how do you rate our country as it is, and how do you rate our corporate world in the next few years?
So let me break that up. I'm not impressed with third largest, fourth largest. That's all nonsensical stuff. Modi, the most popular global leader. These are accolades which mean nothing. Ultimately, what is important is, are people in your country happy, clothed, fed, and lead lives of dignity? This is what should matter. Clothing, feeding, and leading lives of dignity, which means livelihoods that don't have to be grabbed, but are available on offer based on merit, not on nepotism or whatever. Where is India today? The corporate world of India has done a great job, but please remember, the corporate world also has many crimes in the past. There's an old saying, behind every success, there's a dark, deep crime. So I'm not saying all of you are criminals, but I'm just saying people have broken the law because that was the system. That system is slowly changing. I'm seeing the corporate world in India adapt to that better than anyone else. I used to always tell Anand Mahindra, who was a client of mine, and he used to praise this word jugaad. I think it's the most abominable phrase for any human being to praise. That word jugaad actually destroyed Indian innovation for years, because everyone thought that jugaad was the shortcut and was not the innovation. Now I'm going to ask, with all the prowess we have for soft power, software, IT, why did India never produce a Facebook or a Google or a Yahoo? You know why? Because the ecosystem was terrible. Indians, by and large, were very unforgiving of failure. If you failed, forget the bank manager. Your own mother would tell you, don't spend any more money in another business, that too will go. If Steve Jobs were here, he would have retired in Haridwar. He might have been a hippie priest by now, because Indians would have never, this bank manager wouldn't have given him a loan. That has changed. A society is known by its matrimonial columns. In the good old days, they would say wheatish complexion. We're the only country which has discovered wheatish, which is a mix between dark and fair. I mean, no one in the world has called anyone wheatish. Then we had IAS, IPS. They were not badges of honor. Those are the places that you could make tons of money in graft. We were basically a nation of shopkeepers pretending to be entrepreneurs. Today, we are generally a nation of entrepreneurs. Today, there is no castigation if you haven't studied. People don't force you to do degrees. And the problem, to my mind, when I look at it from where I am, is one of our major flaws has been the imprint of our education. See, a degree stops at a particular stage, but knowledge is infinite. Somehow in India, we always believe that knowledge and degrees were parallel and existed to that timeline only. So once you finish your Masters of Arts, you didn't need to read anything, you didn't need to study anything, you didn't need to get involved. Plus, think about the other part. A country of 1.4 billion people, we have very, very few people who are even basically articulate, including amongst our CEOs. How do you inspire people if you can't speak? And I'm not saying you have to be a great orator, but clarity of mind. The point I've always made to young people in colleges is that because you people have not done the crossword, you have not read enough, you haven't come from a liberal arts stream, your ability to move from analogy to analogy is that much limited. Now, we read Dale Carnegie and we'll read some other joker and Steve Covey and all. But the finest consumer psychologist was William Shakespeare. Or what Premchand did, or what so many of the authors from the South have done. But we are out of context because that is not part of our retinue, that's not part of our remit. It's not what we've grown up with because parents of today have also abrogated their responsibility. We have either outsourced parenting to the iPad, which is YouTube, or we have outsourced it to the nanny. So you're not spending enough time with your kids, you're not spending enough time. Our grandparents were repositories of anecdotal context, anecdotal referencing. Today you ask someone that, okay, in Indian cinema, after Raja Harishchandra, which is the first movie in the era, how many Indian films, including Southern films, have been influenced by the most complex of Indian ragas? People will not be able to tell you. You ask people about Raga Shri, of Rag Shri, or Rag Malhar. Just forget Malhar. Malhar is an easy rag. Ask them about Rag Shri. No clue. Because we are so busy making money. We're not enjoying our lives. If I asked you to take a walk with me outside and identify the flowers, okay, Joes would be able to do it. How many people here? You won't. And you know what the answer will be? How is that important? If you don't know the environment you live in, if you're not secure about the environment that you've grown up in, what the hell are you living for? Even food has become cookie cutter. Every joker has started copying the Indian thali. It's the worst way to waste food. But people, Indian, see, we are going back to our roots. We have lost the zest for simple, flavorful, elegant living. We want to magnify everything. But remember, when you magnify things, you pixelate your life. Would you want a pixelated life, or would you want a life that is pure, that is reflective, that you can savor? Our conversations have become ridiculous. People come to dinners, they will say, oh, hello, and they look over your shoulder to see who else is there. The art of the salon has disappeared. Theatre has taken a big dive. You can't imagine what a dive theatre has taken. People don't want to have conversations because people are insecure. They don't know. I was addressing IIM Ahmedabad on March 22. So I asked those jokers, I said, who's the Vice President of India? I said, okay, what is Hrithik Roshan's pet name? Duggu. I said, that's the tragedy of India. These are IIM graduates to be. Now you tell me, shouldn't you worry as a country? I would. We are out of context with what our history has been. Today we are celebrating Ambedkarji's anniversary. Do you know he converted to Buddhism at the end of his life? He was so dismayed with Mahatma Gandhi and with the perniciousness of the Hindu caste system. His entire wish and his entire debate was about the fact when Gandhi said, oh, we will still give you reservation. He says, why? You people cast us aside from within the religion, now you want us to be cast aside from society. Eventually that's what happened. And a brilliant book, which I launched for Shashi Tharoor on December 26 in Calcutta. You must read it. It's called Ambedkar: A Life. It tells you about how debased our politics was then and is now. You know, and he comes from your state, one of the finest books written on the partition and on what happened with the bifurcation of states which led to the partition, all of that, is by V.P. Menon. It's a two-book anthology. Now people will ask you, but what is there to read V.P. Menon? Then keep listening to Modi or Rahul Gandhi. One is an exaggerator, one is an idiot, depending on who you look at. But if this is going to be your source of knowledge, then I need to worry about you also. I mean, can you imagine? Nandini versus Amul has become an election issue in Karnataka. You have to be an outright idiot. I said it yesterday on national television. I said, there are idiots. There's an old Hindi saying, अगर हर ये ब्रांच पे उल्लू बैठे तो अंजामे गुलिस्तान क्या होगा? हर शाख पे उल्लू बैठा है तो अंजामे गुलिस्तान क्या होगा? Which means on every branch there's an owl. What the hell is going to happen to the state of the country? No one is talking about democracy. No one is talking about our constitution fathers. No one is talking about our constitutional history. And we have stopped having debates. We have stopped having discussions. So my wife and I, we live between Goa. I live actually on a plane. I travel 29 days a month. But whenever we're there, we have salons. We have max eight people. The other day, there was Mohammed Khan, Piyush Pandey, myself, and our respective spouses. What were we discussing? The dying cuisine of Hyderabad, which has replaced Halim with Natu Natu. I mean, this is the kind of idiot country we have become. You have forgotten Satyajit Ray, you've forgotten Mrinal Sen, you've forgotten Shyam Benegal, but Natu Natu. So, therein lies the tale.
Couple of quick thoughts. Thank you so much for bringing so much humor into the room. We thought, at least some of us thought this could be a serious session, but hats off to you.
It is a serious session. But a serious session doesn't mean I have to draw blood at the end of it.
No, we are so happy that you're stuck to your tones. A couple of thoughts. I've had the opportunity to watch you on stage, and Zindagi Na Milegi is one of my all-time favorite movies. Which hat do you like, or which do you enjoy most? Author, actor, mentor, keynote? That's
Father. Because I have a 3-year-old daughter, and the second is theatre.
Okay. More than the profession side, you would prefer theatre. Nah.
See, the tragedy in India is we live to work. I only work to live. And I always tell people that hard work is for mules. So people who tell me we work 18 hours a day, that's dangerous. Remember when Dev Gowda was Prime Minister, India did very well because he slept. This guy is working 18 hours a day. That's why we're in trouble. If these politicians sleep, the country will run well.
So one more quick question. Yeah, again, from a KMA perspective, you're seeing so many of these associations, CII and all of that. Anything, word of advice for the team here as to, you're seeing Kerala also every year, so probably.
So my advice would be get rid of the introduction. I know he's about to read his vote of thanks. Get rid of that. And get rid of lighting of the lamp. Never come between the speaker and the speech and between the end of the session and high tea. No one wants, you see, vote of thanks is pre-prepared. Now 3-4 lines what I've said will be included. And he'll thank the same people who have no choice but to attend. I mean, you all are members, what choice do you have? I can't run away. So why this? I'm not waiting to be thanked and all that. No one, see, these are things we have also emasculated and completely ringed tradition. Now, Amit Shah, the chap lands everywhere, everyone guy gives him. One day, he will not be assassinated. His neck will break because all the things that they're putting around his neck. Every day they're putting something. He's getting about 20, those pattas. I mean, one guy can easily choke or just be, weighed under so much.
Sir, I'll bring you back to the topic we were discussing. How far are the CEOs responsible, or what is your take on this takeovers, especially what was mentioned in the papers are hostile takeovers like Mindtree, L&T, Sony, Z, etc. And second question is, how far do you feel that the shareholder activism is working in India? I'm taking the case in point is the case of Eicher Motors, where the shareholders went on to revise the MD's remuneration.
I think shareholder activism is doing very well. But let me tell you, it's also an instrument of blackmail, depending on which shareholder group is there. But I mean, I'm totally in favor of shareholder activism. I can tell you, and that company has a plant here also in Kerala. That company's chairman and quasi-owner, who sits on what, 13 or 14% of the stock, even the mineral water in their house is billed to the company, because the house is deemed a company guest house. These rackets run amok. So I'm all in favor of shareholder activism. As far as takeover is concerned, of course the CEO is important here. I'm not saying important from a manipulative point of view, but the CEO is very important because his job is to make sure that the business is running and the business will not be subsumed. Now imagine what happened at Satyam's time and when Mahindra took over and then created the Satyam thing into Tech Mahindra. It worked well for both. Now, the only scoundrel who allowed his company to die because of greed and corruption was Naresh Goyal. A great airline was allowed to flounder and then eventually die because that man didn't want to lose control. Etihad was willing to buy the airline, come in as major shareholder. All they wanted were two positions, CEO, CFO. He refused. And the airline died. A great airline to my mind. So it all depends on the kind of CEO you are. If you're a CEO with great integrity, you will make sure that the takeover or the merger or whatever works for the benefit of your consumers and the ultimate shareholding that will, develop post the merger.
Some Indian CEOs claim that we can do business in India without corruption. And actually what they do is they outsource it. What is your comment on it?
I totally agree. Now start naming the ones. Nah? There's no point being, you outsource the corruption. Excellent. See, these are the kind of people we need in our country. Forget Mahatma Gandhi, he's a living testament of honesty. But who do you outsource it to? Because those are the interesting people then. Your chartered accountant. No, you're the editor. He says you outsource the corruption. Huh? Now look at this here. This is great honesty. Only in Kerala will a magazine editor say we are corrupt and we've outsourced corruption. Hats off to you, my friend. What's the magazine called? Dhanam. It's in Malayalam. Oh, then I'll have my wife to translate it. But you're right, everyone. You're absolutely right. I won't say everyone. Now there will be a counter to this, what I'm about to say. I can tell you about the Tatas only from one perspective. Many years ago, Mr. Krishna Kumar, who was one of the finest human beings in the Tata system, wanted me to rework the entire luxury branding of the Taj. So I went to Taj Lands End one day, and we had a foreigner GM, Birgit Zoniger. So I said, I saw some patterned tanks, not those boom, boom, boom ones, those water storage ones. When I was driving on the ceiling, I said, what the hell are those? She says, oh, those are storage on the terrace. I said, I want to see it. Cut a long story short, I went back to KK and I said, and Mr. Tata, I said, we should start the chambers there in Taj Lands End. So Mr. Krishna Kumar immediately agreed. And then KK told Bixen, who was then our MD, then the MD of the Taj, to start work. Now let me tell you what happened. The chambers was lying ready and it remained ready for 1 year, 6 months. Why did we never open it for that 18 months? All the BMC wanted was 17 lakhs. And the Taj refused. I can tell you about what happened in Jamshedpur and what continues to happen in Jamshedpur. So there are companies, but let me also put a rider. See, when a company has a lot of legacy, then even the guy wanting wanting to extract money is a bit fearful. So there are two kinds. One is out of respect they are fearful, or number two, they know that you'll get them killed. So, I better not ask this guy for money. So that's how it works. But yes, I think increasingly more and more companies are doing work in India without corruption. But you're absolutely right. Earlier, a lot of the MNCs, because of their reporting processes in the US, they had to outsource it. And a lot of them, got caught. A lot got into trouble in their home countries. Enron, case in point. Rebecca Mark. The only thing Rebecca Mark got into trouble was not because she ran a terrible operation, but because they had handed out money to people here and greased some palms in order to get some permissions. So that's how it is. Yeah. Someone here had a. I'll only quote Satyajit Ray. When asked, what do you think of art cinema? He says there's no such thing. There's good cinema and bad cinema. I don't believe there's legacy CEO and non-legacy CEO. You're a good CEO or a bad CEO. You remember when this dot-com boom happened, we said, oh, old world company is a new world company. Ultimately, the job, as I said at the beginning of my talk, the job of the CEO is to invigorate the ecosystem he or she operates in, qua their shareholders, their consumers, and their colleagues. These are your principal three stakeholders. You don't need to be bothered about the fourth, because all your critical stakeholders, which give you both revenue and reward, are subsumed in that ecosystem. Yeah.
Hi, Melvin Matthews. I have a feeling that, as the CEO operates today, of course he needs to reinvent himself, but the world is changing around him quite rapidly. Technology is changing, politics is changing, regulations are changing, even society, the morality is changing. So it's not about reinventing the CEO, which absolutely he must, but it is a continuous process. He has to continuously reinvent himself and not think that I reinvent, now I've reached my destination. What would be your thoughts about this, in this constantly evolving, changing, not just changing, but rapidly changing environment around the CEO? How does one cope?
So if you heard the opening bits of my talk, I said that. I said today there is the tyranny of social media. There's anonymity in terms of who's attacking you. The newspapers and the media can be very pernicious and one-sided. So you're under constant attack and under constant threat. So you have to always be wary and cognizant of the challenges you face. See, remember, CEOs in many ways are smart enough to also recognize where the headwinds are likely to come from. And they sometimes, I don't know how many of you love chess, but chess is not about the game. It's about the opponent. It's like bridge. You measure up the game based on who you're playing against. So to my mind, the CEO is almost always on an active chessboard, figuring out, okay, what are my moves going to be should this happen? So I've seen some of the best CEOs always do two things. Number one, worst case scenario building, and number two, contingency planning. And once you do these two, you tell me who and how would the CEO of Kodak have imagined that his entire business would go out of the door? Now, let me give you an example of how we reconfigured. I'm not, blowing my own trumpet, but I'll give you an example. Sanjeev Goenka is one of my clients. When I first started work, I did the name change. So Harish Goenka kept RPG. We said RP Sanjeev Goenka Group. Then we saw he had a humongous library of music under HMB, then Saregama now. Over the years, we created box sets, Kohinoor. That time we could do it on CDs. Then we created these annual calendars, which in each sleeve of the month you had a CD. Today, you've got Karma, which is a humongous hit with old Hindi music. Then we now created last year Karma with karaoke. Because remember, the other beautiful thing about this country is every guy thinks his daughter is MS Subbulakshmi or Lata Mangeshkar. I mean, the worst singers will bore you to death and subject you to this kind of level of singing. So we thought it's better to have karaoke. At least his voice can be drowned by increasing the treble and bass on the system. But I mean, that's what it is. So it requires a certain thinking of where the consumer is. Like in the hotel business, and I've worked extensively across hotel brands across the world. You know that people, so anyone who says, oh, hotels know what guests want, they have no clue. Hotels are also learning every day because they are now unable to decide the exposure that the guest has. Take me, for example. I'm an Indian. When I travel abroad, I never stay in an Indian hotel for whatever reason. So I stay only at the Four Seasons. But again, I choose the hotels by destination. So let's say there are 2 Four Seasons in New York, Midtown and Canary and Downtown. I'll stay in the Midtown one. Now, consumers know exactly what they want. But let's say in Brunton Boatyard, I get an experience which is mind-boggling. I will switch. And consumers are switching. So the one thing, and that's very important, I'm glad you raised this question, consumer loyalty is on the decline. People are no longer that loyal as they were, which is a damn good thing for new brands entering. Today, it was out in the papers and someone sent me the link. The global CEO of Marriott is saying they will open 250 hotels in India. Mark my words, they will screw it up. Because when you open such a large number, let me give you from a hotel context. The biggest problem today hotels in India are having is bench strength. We don't have good people. The quantum of training, the attrition rate is so high. Today, if you look at the traditional schools, the Oberoi School or the Taj in Manipal or any of these, Pusa Institute, blah, 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 they are unable to churn out the demand. And unless you have good people fronting your guests, you're in trouble. So I'm saying we have a lot of challenges, and CEOs have particularly challenges related to people and getting people to stay. A lot of people are leaving. You see, earlier you would be embarrassed to leave your job. Today, people are willing to shift jobs for a 500 rupee increase here. Because they equate that 500 rupees with respect, not with just more money. Okay, last question, if there is.
The reluctance of Indian CEOs to take a stand? Or is it expected, is it that they are expected not to take a stand, that the ecosystem wants them to be docile, in stark contrast to the CEOs, say the global CEOs, who are taking a stand and who are respected for it? Do we have such equivalents in India?
No. I hate to say this. So let me tell you about the people I work with. Mukesh Ambani is not interested. Mr. Tata never ever commented politically on anything. Chandra, again, totally apolitical. The last and the only guy I remember who had balls of steel was Rahul Bajaj. But then again, remember, Rahul Bajaj had nothing to lose. His sons were running the businesses. Rahul Bajaj could afford at that time in life to become this statesman. But when he was running Bajaj Auto hands-on, he didn't take on the government. See, one very famous industrialist who I will not name told me one day, he says, so I said, why can't you abuse the government like I do? He says, you don't have any stake in the system. He's saying, my factory can be shut down by a boiler inspector for 40 days and my employees will lose their daily wages. He's saying that's why I worry about taking a stand. But look, that will change. The CEO will want him or herself to take a stand, but not in the current environment today. See, let's face it, and I want to end this with this discussion. The person who destroyed the idea of India was Indira Gandhi. She destroyed every institution. And let me give you historical facts. Nehru was outstanding. So, these jokers now abusing Nehru now is stupid. Indira Gandhi destroyed banking. She destroyed insurance. She created Ayaram Gayaram politics. She destroyed the election commission. She destroyed the judiciary. Remember, A.N. Ray superseded everyone. H.R. Khanna was cast aside. P.N. Bhagwati, one of our finest chief justices, had to write a congratulatory letter to her. That woman was evil. Evil. I'll say it. I mean, you don't have to agree, and I don't want you to agree. And I don't care. And if my good friend Dhanam reports this, I'll talk about their outsourced corruption. So my point is, and I have nothing against her, I'm just saying from an institutional point of view, Modi is only version 2.0. Having said that, now let me give you what Nirmala referred to. I first met Modi in 1999 when he was my briefing client for Vajpayee's campaign. I had the most unbelievable and still do relationship with him. On February 1 and 2, 2002, Godhra happened. I wrote 23 articles in the Indian Express. In one, I called him Welcome India's Hitler. September 2008, I had gone to inaugurate the YPO chapter in Ahmedabad. And he says, his guy called Sanjay Bhausar called me, he says, Aap saab ke saath bhojan kariye. I said, boss, at night I will not come for dinner because there'll be no booze and there'll be vegetarian food. I'm not that unwell yet. So I said, I'll come for tea. I went, he had amazing khanvi. It's all documented in articles. So if you Google Suhail Seth Narendra Modi Financial Express, I wrote an article 3 days after that. At that tea, Modi told me everything that he was doing, quad development. Gift City, he had just done the draft at that time, 2008. Sabarmati, he told me, he says, so at that time, Lionel Barber, who's the FT, is still a very dear friend, was the editor-in-chief of the FT. He says, get me some things on Thames development, blah, blah, blah. Then he says, Suhail bhai, kal kahan ja rahe hain? I said, Bombay. So Ratan Tata ko boliye, Nano yahan le aaye. Remember, in 2008, June, we were asked to evict from Singur. October the 2nd, we finally made the public announcement where Mr. Tata said that we are now exiting from Singur. September 8, when I met Modi, the next day I tell R&T, I said, by the way, I met Modi and he wants the nano plant to come to Sanad. So Mr. Tata said, I said, this is it. That's my level of communication. I don't want to get involved. Something goes wrong, your neck will be on the block. I mean, my neck. I said, Sanad happened. Then I asked Mr. Tata, I said, how? He says he's the only man who called me in. And there was non-contiguous land of about 300 acres, in the whole. Call the owner. So he asked the owner, how much do you want? So the owner said, let's say 10 rupees. He says, no, take 1,000. It was a fair deal. That's the way the guy works. In 2012, and actually 2013 January, there was a wedding in Nina Kothari's house. Her daughter was getting married, who's Mukesh's sister in Chennai. And by then, Modi, because he was a Congress governor, is a pariah, if he was seen in public. So everyone told me, oh, you look after him. I said, I'm not looking after anyone. I said, I'll sit with them. Why should I be the... We were chatting, blah, blah, blah. 2014, May the 18th, they won the election. May 26th, the governor was sworn in. May 28th is my birthday. Jaitley was one of my closest friends, Arun. And Pranab Mukherjee was hosting a dinner. So Jaitley got up at 8 o'clock. And Modi asked him, Arun ji, kahan ja rahe hain? He says, Suhail ka janamdin, uske ghar ja rahe hain. He says, don't be late, jaiye, wo nahi to sari zindagi hum log ko TV pe gali dega. Now let me tell you why he will be remembered. What has happened with direct benefit transfers is unimaginable. Digitization, unimaginable. Startup India, which you alluded to, outstanding. More, plus the diaspora has never been more confident than they are today. And you be on calls with people, you meet people, it's unbelievable. Their only screw up is they always mess up in terms of creating the right perception. And the surround sound about Hindus, Muslims is tragic. And I will end by saying, this is a great country, and it's great because its greatness stems from a thought which is deeply mired in liberal thinking. It's not a country that needs to be or should be or can be divided. Hate is not a virtue. Hate is a destructive, corrosive element. And if you use hate to further any cause, ultimately it will bite you back. So foster affection instead of hatred. Foster unity instead of divisiveness. And only then will you, and these are the stands that CEOs must take. I'm not saying that the CEO must support the BJP, but CEOs must support what is India and what is Indianness. What is our civilizational legacy and how we need to carry it forward. That's what CEOs should do. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. What is India and Indianness? And thank you so much for sharing the pearls of wisdom, experience, brilliantly, humorously. I have noted down a lot of points. Now I'm petrified to say everything. Therefore, thank you so much, and thank you so much for making this day as most memorable day in KMA's history. And now I don't know how, sir, now I don't know how he is going to propose water thanks. It's
No, not poor. India and he are like the bumblebee. Aerodynamically, the bumblebee isn't supposed to fly because of the size. But you see, the bumblebee doesn't know that, so it carries on happily.
Distinguished chief guests, president, chairman, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I would have loved to say thank you, and a big thank you to everyone, but it will be really unfair if I don't thank that brilliant session which we had just now and the lively Q&A which followed. So I must say a few words about it. Today, it was a dream come true for me. I'm sure it would have been same for many of you. I have been keenly watching our chief guest, Mr. Suhail Seth, for over years on television, YouTube, and many other platforms with interest and admiration. Each time I watch him speak, I was flabbergasted with wow. And how he speaks, coherent, eloquent, expressive, fluent, clear, and comprehensive. Sir, I envy your style, not only in how you communicate with substance, but also your appearance and aura, especially that beautiful, unique, fancy hairstyle. Today was yet another day for all of us, and we will cherish for a long time. You spoke so well on the subject. It was awesome, fantastic, excellent, outstanding, super, amazing, and wonderful, and many more positive adjectives. It was indeed very valuable advice to all the C-suite executives in this part of the world on how to reinvent. On behalf of President Nirmala and all the members of Kerala Management Association, I thank you, Mr. Suhail Seth, for sparing your valuable time to be the chief guest of KMA for the much acclaimed annual CEO Summit. and for accepting all those interesting questions and answering it so eloquently. I now request KMA President Nirmala Lilly to formally hand over a token of gratitude to the chief guest. President Nirmala Lilly must be thanked for arranging this excellent program and for pursuing him all the way from Goa. She has been doing events one better than the next in these challenging times. Thank you, Madam, for the presidential address and also for your efforts to bring in the best interest of KMA. Highly appreciated. I'll be failing in my duty if I don't profusely thank the chairman of the CEO Forum and our elected managing committee member, Mr. K. Harikumar, Managing Director of TCC Limited, for not only welcoming everyone present here today, but also for arranging this very important and prestigious annual CEO Conclave of KMA. On behalf of President and the entire MC, I thank you for all the arrangements today. I see a galaxy of past presidents sitting here, starting with OTS Nambiar, Matthew Urumbath, Jibu Paul, Vivek, Ken Shastri. They are all well-wishers and advisors and guides and KMA's pillars of strength. They built this great institution of KMA brick by brick with their blood, sweat, and tears. All K members will be ever grateful to you for all your unstinted support to this year's team to continue your sincere work in spearheading the management movement in this part of the world. I thank all the EC members, starting with Senior Vice President A. Balakrishnan, Vice President Program Committee Chair Bibu Punuran, Treasurer Johnson Matthew, Joint Secretary Dilip Narayan for their cooperation to make all the events success. I place on record special appreciation and gratitude to all the managing committee members present here and otherwise. They are the guiding light of all the activities this year. We have also planned exciting programs in coming weeks to make this KMA year memorable for all members. Kindly wait for the next series of announcements and mark your calendars. Rest assured, the best of the year is yet to come. Thanks to the management and the staff of Taj Malabar for accepting our request to have this event this year just before they go for their renovation. Next month, the high tea is waiting for you at the Dolphin Point, and if you are lucky, you will see some dolphins swimming across. That's right outside at the corner of the lawns. Thank you all. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, and the meeting